Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to the RIBA Future Architects in Practice meetup. My name's Abigail Patel. I'm a Part 2 architectural assistant at Buttress Architects in Manchester, UK, and I'm going to be hosting tonight's event. Firstly, thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. I hope wherever you are all well and safe wherever you are in the world. It's amazing to be with all of you from around the world tonight. After all, RIBA is a global professional membership body, and tonight we can truly all feel part of this huge community of architects and future architects. Welcome in particular to students studying architecture, and especially those currently working in practice. It's such a new and challenging experience for everyone working in practice right now. We hope this event will touch on some of the challenges and also provide advice and inspiration for you all. I would like to mention that a great source of support is, of course, the RIBA student membership. It's free to students studying their RIBA Part 1 and 2. And as part of your membership, you will have access to the RIBA Future Architects programme, which provides a range of events, activities, resources, opportunities for members as you progress from Part 1 to 3 and onto qualification as well. I encourage you all to visit the Future Architects hub page, which you can find on architecture.com, and join the RIBA there. Just to start, there's just a bit of housekeeping for tonight's event. We are recording tonight's event, so those that can't join us live will be able to watch afterwards. We will upload it to the RIBA Future Architects YouTube playlist for everyone to access as well, so you can find it there. We invite you all to use the Q&A function in the event to say hello, and also send your questions and comments during the event. So if you tell us your name, where you're working, and also who your question is for, we can pose those after the panel's spoken. Again, we hope the technology will work for us tonight, but if we've got any problems, we'll do our best to just carry on. And if that becomes impossible, we'll contact you all to reschedule. But fingers crossed, everything's going okay so far. We aim to finish at 7 p.m, so let's begin. Tonight we have a panel of guest speakers lined up for you. Each of them are speaking for 5 minutes on a topic relevant to students of architecture working in practice. The aim of this event is to share a snapshot of insight into what it's like to be studying and working in the UK right now, as we, like all other countries, remain in a time of uncertainty. We hope to provide you all with useful information, insight, reassurances, and hopefully some inspiration as well. We will select and pose questions to the panel once all of our speakers have presented. So, on to our speakers. Our first speaker is Rosie Fishburn, a Part 1 graduate from the University of Nottingham, and is now working as a Part 1 architectural assistant at EPR Architects. So I will hand over to Rosie.
Hi, thank you very much for the introduction, Abby. So I've just graduated during lockdown, which was a bit of a unique experience. Oh, am I okay? Okay. So I just graduated, and it was a bit of a uncertain time for everybody. It was quite scary moving on to online teaching, and there was that uncertain period where we didn't really have any tutorials, but it ended up being that I stayed in Nottingham with 2 of my other housemates, and we carried on going through tutorials and finishing our degree working in Nottingham, so I didn't move back with my parents. And we had tutorials about once a week, sometimes twice a week on Teams with other people from our unit. So we tried to keep some of the studio experience, even though we obviously couldn't see each other. And we sometimes did Zoom lunches where we'd all get together and chat over lunch while we were eating on a studio day, so that we could kind of hear about how everyone was getting on, because it was quite difficult to miss out on seeing what other people have been doing while we were kind of finishing off the end of our final projects. And then we had a virtual exhibition, so we presented all our work on a website, which was a bit anticlimactic compared to having all your work out on printed out on the big boards, but it meant that everyone could see it and we could share it with people who weren't necessarily going to be able to come to the actual exhibition, and we saved on printing costs. So there were positives as well to it. And then once we graduated, I moved home and kind of started thinking about getting a job, and it was quite an overwhelming time, and I had a bit of time off. But then I was really fortunate to get a job, and I had my interview online on Teams, and showed them my portfolio, and they liked me enough, so I started working at the beginning of September, and I actually did have my first day in the office, which was nice to meet a few people, but since then I've been working from home every day from my bedroom, which has been quite difficult. Starting a new job working from home and not knowing anyone and kind of only meeting people through Teams is, I mean, I'm sure lots of people have had the same experience. It's quite difficult. So yeah, I've been settling into it. It's taken me a bit longer than maybe if I'd been in the office, but it's been really interesting, and it's been exciting being able to do something different and learn different things. But I've prepared a few positives that I found that from this whole COVID situation, because I think some of the positives that people talk about of kind of, oh, we can work from home and spend more time at home, aren't necessarily so exciting when you're moving back home with your parents, and there's so many opportunities that you might be missing out on. So my first positive was that it gave me a bit of a purpose during lockdown when the world was going crazy and no one knew what was going on. Actually having the degree to finish was stressful, but it gave me something to do when we were only allowed out once a day. And I think that was overall a good thing, probably. The second one is for people who are applying for jobs still, and it's that you can apply for a job anywhere. You don't have to be in the city that you're applying for. So the world is literally your oyster. You can go and apply for anywhere. You don't have to be able to move there anytime soon, because we're all working from home. So you can get a job at any practice that you want. Your dream practice could be anywhere in the world. Also, I found that it's given me a bit more free time to spend with my family. I'm doing creative things outside of architecture and regaining a bit of a balance after quite an intense degree. So I found that really nice. I've also found while I've been working, I've been able to join more meetings than I might have otherwise been able to do, because they're all online. So you can get involved in parts of the project that you might not have otherwise been able to do, because you can just be in the background on Teams. And also while meetings are going on, you can Google what's going on. So if everyone seems to make everything shorter, and there's so many just acronyms for things that are just sometimes go over your head, but it means you can just Google them and keep on track with what's going on. And finally, there's loads of free resources online that have become more widely available because of COVID. Things like 100 Days of Architecture, there's virtual exhibitions, you can get involved in the RIBA conferences, and there's things like organisations like ACAN you can get involved in, because they're all on Zoom and virtual, so it doesn't matter where you are, you can kind of make the most of all these things that are available, yeah, which you couldn't do necessarily otherwise. So yeah, thanks very much. I'll pass you back to Abby.
Thank you very much, Rosie, for your lovely presentation. I definitely agree about the Googling things in meetings, because I did that anyway. So our next speaker is Thomas Roundtree. Thomas is also Part 1 at EPR Architects, Part 1 Architectural Assistant, and he's graduated from Birmingham City University, so I'll hand over to Thomas.
Thank you very much. So yes, my name is Thomas Rowntree. I'm going to be presenting university life during lockdown and working remotely as an architectural assistant, kind of adding on to what Rosie was speaking about. So I graduated from my BA Honours Architecture degree back in June from the Birmingham School of Architecture and Design, obviously during lockdown. I'm now Part 1 Architectural Assistant at EPR Architects, which is located in London, but I'm currently working remotely from home. And I also run my own studio and YouTube channel alongside my studies. So obviously when we went into lockdown back in March, obviously we didn't really know what to expect, but I think we can say that lockdown life very much looked like this. Lockdown led us to continue university work from home, adapt to online working, present our projects and ideas through video calls, which was obviously very different to kind of standing up and presenting our work in front of our peers and tutors. We had to isolate ourselves from family and friends, and I think we all lost the plot a little bit. So if I was to share my experiences, I put together a 1-minute video, just kind of showcasing my experience as a Part 1 as an architectural student during lockdown. Today is Wednesday the 18th of March and uni has officially stopped teaching. This is the equipment that I will be using during my time at home.
And I wonder if you know what it means to find your dreams come true.
Is it just me or is being sat inside all day every day driving me insane? Now, time to go on the hunt for bagels. I need coffee. I'm losing the plot. I noticed my brain just like shutting down. Submitted. Done it. Now time to sleep. Obviously, there are many negatives, and I think obviously lockdown was a very tough time for many people across the globe. But I also think it provided some opportunities for creatives. I know that might not make much sense, but I think the opportunities to broaden our digital understandings, explore new ways of presenting ideas, drawings and projects, to use creative methods to photograph models and scanning work, to build up new presentational skills, develop on new existing software skills, and also to adapt to new working environments from working at home. And obviously graduating in lockdown was, like Rosie said, quite anticlimactic. Not really be able to celebrate with our peers and tutors that we kind of went through the whole journey with for the past 3 years. So it wasn't really our normal celebration that we would normally have with our students and tutors. So following graduating, I spent probably about a month of catching up on sleep, shutting my brain off from the world of architecture. I then put together an application package that would allow me to express my personality and skills, continue the story of my projects through graphic communication, think outside the box a little bit, so putting together a website, digital business cards, application videos. And I think the important thing is to stand out from the rest, because during this time where everything is so digital, you're not there to be to present or hand over your CV, so you have to find ways to kind of express your personality through obviously digital. And now that I'm working from home as an architectural assistant, there are a couple methods that I employ to cope, and I think routine is something that I bang on a lot about on my YouTube videos, and this is really important to make sure that I'm keeping active by walking or going to the gym, cycling, etc. Removing myself from my laptop and working environment, continue doing the things I love and enjoy outside of work, and I also think lots of coffee kind of helps us along the way. So the future, what does the future hold? And though the future might be impossible to see, I think we can predict that people will continue to work from home because people know that that is a possibility now. Less people will use public transport, digital will become even more prominent and important, and online communities will become more prominent to facilitate the lack of face-to-face studio culture. And I think this is where the power of social media is going to really kind of be quite present to allow for students and fellow creatives to be able to connect with one another around the globe, as well as practitioners as well. So I think kind of online communities is going to be like a forefront of our studio culture. And that is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Thomas, for your presentation and a really great video. There's some points on there which I think I might have to come back to about routine, but I think, yeah, really insightful. So thank you for sharing that. So for our third speaker, let's hear from Dr. Rob Schmidt, Senior Lecturer and Head of Architecture at Loughborough University, with over 10 years experience supporting students on placement. So let's hear from Rob.
Thanks, Abigail, and thanks, Rosie and Thomas, for their insightful presentations as well. Hi, everyone. As Abigail said, I'm Rob Schmidt. I'm originally from the States, if you can't pick up the accent. I participate in architecture in the US, Japan, and Germany, so I have a tremendous passion for architecture that's taken me around the world to really, I have a real belief that, that we have this opportunity as a profession still to make a significant role in shaping the everyday experiences of our communities. So I currently have the pleasure of leading architecture at Loughborough University, where in a bit of a pitch to make it a bit unique, we've interwoven the first year of practice experience as part of the educational framework. This gives our students a bit earlier experience in practice, It also gives them our support in finding a placement. As part of this, we run a placement event where practices visit the school and network with our students. We hold mock interviews with practitioners, and we contact and send newsletters to practices on behalf of our students. But even despite our support, I think, as Rosie and Thomas have indicated, it's been a difficult year. It's been exceptionally hard this year across for everyone. So if you have a placement, like Rosie and Thomas, take full advantage of the opportunity. Be proactive. It's really important that you've identified a mentor. This is for Rosie and Thomas as well, who you can ask loads of questions to, you can go to if there's a problem, or if you need additional work, especially if you're working remotely. You have to remain in contact and be proactive. Do not be afraid to engage with the team and the practice in your project. Another thing is make sure you fill out your PDR sheets throughout the experience. Please do not wait until the end, okay? I mean, that seems quite a technical thing, but actually it's incredibly helpful, not just to reflect on your experience, but to make sure that you are aware of the parts of the process that you could use more exposure to, and that you can ask for that exposure. And absolutely, in the worst case scenario is they say no big deal, okay? So, be proactive and make sure you ask those questions. Now, on the other hand, if you're still looking for an opportunity, do your best not to stress. I know that's easier for me to say than for you to do. But it's important that you remain confident in yourself and your work, okay? Our students find jobs throughout the year, all right? This is not like there's one time where they hire students and that's the only time, okay? I always recommend sending out application in batches and not waiting to perfect your CV and portfolio. I mean, this way you have something to do and to work on, and you don't go crazy while you're waiting for to hear back from practices, because a lot of times they will not respond immediately. I think it's important that you think broadly, not only across the types of architectural practices, but other organizations as well in the construction industry. This can count for your PEDR experience as well. I know from the broader school efforts that a number of construction companies have actually started hiring more than the architecture practices. So you can actually learn a lot from working outside an architecture practice, in particular how other professions see architects and what they value, and how you can, use this as a tremendous help for when you're practicing as an architect and engaging with other team members and learning how to get the most out of being a collaborative design leader. But as Rosie has already hinted towards, think broadly as well geographically, and not just across the UK, but internationally. Use Google Maps. Actually, it's an incredibly powerful tool to find architects. If you just type in architects, you actually find more than we'd be doing a Google search. We've had a few students find opportunities abroad. In our geography has completely shifted with the pandemic. Where still matters, but it's also true we are all right here, right? So I think it's really important that you think broadly about these things. Also, stay organized. If you're not doing it already, I recommend making a spreadsheet that allows you to track your interaction with practices and follow up appropriately. It's quite easy to get mixed up when you're sending a lot of things out to practices, and make sure you track the dates when you contacted them. You don't want to lose an opportunity simply because you made a silly mistake and forgot to follow up, or you sent the same practice your CV 4 weeks in a row. That never really goes over well. Okay, I think also, one of the best techniques for smaller practice actually is to follow up with phone calls. Give them time to respond, but be consistent. You're your best advocate. I'm always quite surprised when students tell me how a casual chat over the phone turns into a securing a job. Okay, and we've had quite a few students over the years do that. But more than anything, don't lose focus on bettering yourself over the year. Okay, no matter if you're in a placement or an internship or not. Improve your skills, learn new software, particularly Revit. Look for volunteer opportunities, events where you can network and meet people. There are so many free, as Rosie said, there are so many free online events. Keep yourself busy. You never know when an impromptu opportunity can lead to something bigger, okay? I know as a young, talented, aspiring architect, it's quite easy to get lost in a particular vision of what you think you need for a placement. But my last point is just please try to remember at this stage that you will learn a lot from all sorts of experience. And this year is as much about you simply learning what you want to do with your life as it is about, you know, your PEDR experience. So Abigail, that's me done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rob, for that presentation. I'm hoping that people have got some good questions from that. I'm sure people have got a few questions for Rob. Do send in your questions if you've got any. We will be leaving time at the end for questions. So now I'm going to move on to our final presenter, Herpreet Rayet-Boughey. Herpreet is a studio director at ADP Architecture. So hand over to Herpreet.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for having me here today. And it's been great to hear from Rosie, Thomas, and Rob, who's probably taken half of my presentation away from me. But there you go, Rob. I'll forgive you for that. Look, we're really living in a very uncertain and challenging world at the moment, and your priority really should be your health and well-being. Because as Thomas stated, it's tough. It's extremely tough being at home, being isolated. Especially when you're at your early stages of your career, you know, but what it's teaching us, and I think not just, you know, students, but people who've been in the profession for a very long time, including myself, who's probably not as digitally advanced as probably a lot of you, is about being versatile and agile. It's staying focused and positive about what you want to do. For those of you looking for work, you know, off the back of what Rob's just said, is have a plan. Put things into place. Think about where you want to be in your career. But this is an opportunity for you to expand your knowledge base, and not just your knowledge base within architecture, but about what's happening around you. You all live within communities. We as architects, we design for people, we design for communities. Be part of that community. Look for opportunities. Look for being part of a woodland trust. Go and work for a contractor, you know, be part of the people that you're designing for. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story. When I was a Part 1, I was made redundant from a small architectural practice in Coleshill. Absolutely devastated. No jobs out there. What am I going to do? And I applied to a lot of practices and I had a lot of rejections. But I ended up working for a contractor. It's probably one of the best things I ever did. Because what it taught me was that you can apply what you've learnt in a different environment. As architects, we are very versatile. And part of that versatility is how we communicate with different people, how we understand what their needs are. So don't feel disheartened if you don't get a job straight away. Look at the other opportunities. And as an employer, when I look at a CV, it's not just the flashy images, it's just what else have you done in your career? What else makes you different? What makes you more relatable to your clients, to your end users? And that's just as important as being fantastic designers. That communication process, that understanding process is very, very important. So I'd encourage you to do that. Again, going back to expand your knowledge base, learn new skills, go out there, be part of the community, learn Revit, be involved with architectural associations like the Birmingham AA Association, the RIBA, get yourself a mentor, and also form groups within yourself to support one another, because you're all in the same boat here. Talk to your colleagues, talk to your mentors. And for those of you who are working out there, I can understand how isolating, because you want to learn, but you don't have your senior mentors there to listen to, because you do learn by listening and watching and how people are answering the phone. Don't think that as a negative. Use that as an opportunity to ask the question, how can I help? A lot of your seniors are probably going through their own, you know, ups and downs in making sure work's coming in, making sure work's being done. But by you just asking, how can I help in that process? It's you know, will come across really well, you know, and ask for help as well. But as I said, you know, be proactive and get involved, like Rosie said earlier on. Use this opportunity. This is just going to make you stronger and more versatile architects when you get out there. It's not all doom and gloom. There is a positive, there is an end to this. As architects, we're extremely intelligent people. Be creative with what you're doing, stand out, do other things, but also look after your health and your well-being, because your mental well-being is extremely important for you to get through this. So I hope that's been of some help to you all. I look forward to hopefully answering some of your questions. Over to you, Abby. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Herpreet, and thank you to all of our speakers. I think we've covered a lot of ground there, lots of different perspectives, which is great. Just before we move on to the questions, so keep sending those in, we have a few announcements. There are some upcoming events that we'd like to share with you that you might like to attend. So we have 2 RIBA member events coming up. Firstly, the Future Architects Discuss Zero Carbon, Zero Tolerance, Zero Bull, hosted by Part 2 student group Unit 0, and that's on the 22nd of October, next week. And also Future Architects Discuss Studying and Mental Health in partnership with the ABS, the Architects Benevolent Society, a great charity, and that's on the 11th of November. These are member-only events though, so do remember to join up as an RIBA student member at architecture.com, and it is completely free to do so. Also, October is Black History Month, and you can join RIBA and the Paradigm Network for a Black History Month book club event on the 29th of October. The group will be discussing 3 books, Natives, Race and Class in the Ruins of Empire by Akala, Francis Curie, Radically Simple by Aicha Bego, and To Be Young, Gifted and Black by Nina Simone. And one final announcement from us. For those of you who are looking to return to Part 2 next year, you can apply to the RIBA Part 2 bursary, which offers funding of £1,000 each term up to a maximum of £6,000 for the duration of Part 2. Dates to apply will be announced to RIBA members first and then on social media. So let's now move on to some questions for our panel. This one's for Rosie and Thomas, so if I go to Rosie first and then to Thomas afterwards. Are there any online accounts, communities or websites that you found inspiring or helpful during your working from home? So go to Rosie.
So I follow quite a lot of accounts on Instagram, quite a lot of architecture accounts of different practices, but also the RIBA have got lots of different branches. So I follow the East Midlands one because I went to uni there, and also the London one, and various different ones. And there's just always little things that are being shared and posted that lead you to down different kind of alleyways of looking at different things. So I really enjoy just always having loads of different fun things being shared, and yeah, mostly from practices I find interesting. So that's what I do. I don't know if Thomas has got anything that he...
Yeah, so there's something called the Architecture Social, which has been created recently, which I think is a fantastic platform for students to kind of share their work, ask for advice on kind of applications, CVs, portfolios, and that is created recently, and they kind of share kind of available jobs on that profile as well. So I think that's a good place for people to sign up to get involved in looking for advice for applications, and also kind of looking for jobs and places to apply for. And also obviously following on from what Rosie said, Instagram is a fantastic place. Kind of getting involved with communities on Instagram is also very, I think, useful as well.
Great, thanks very much, Rosie and Thomas. I've got a question here which I think would be good for Rob. What advice do you have for students still studying to help them maintain focus in this uncertain time?
Sorry, amateur mistake. I apologize. So I think it's really difficult, but I think one of the really important things that we try to do here is we try to create a sense of community virtually. We try to replicate what, the kind of studio community, and what we've tried to do is, where we are now actually at Loughborough is we're still allowing access to the studio, but if you don't have that access, I think, you know, what we've done is we've tried to create a number of platforms using Padlet and Miro to actually create collaborative and online activities. And I think the more that you can, you know, sort of engage with your tutors and professors to create these different online platforms, I think is really important. The other thing that we do quite a lot of is we have quite an active architecture society, which really promotes the kind of cross-fertilization across the whole cohort, and the idea that you know, there's different activities that we run both online and in person to try to create this. And I think it's really important that you hopefully where you're at, there is a kind of architecture society and different societies that you can actually engage with to help you keep active. I know it can be quite especially if you're in a situation where you're sort of locked down and limited in terms of your ability to have movement and access. But I think it's really important to try to find that sense of community through the different online platforms, and be proactive. You know, ask your tutors to do this. I mean, if they're not doing it, I mean, I think that personally is a shame. It's a problem. They really should be promoting this, and we do it quite heavily. I mean, I make the tutors all engaged in this process because I think it's so important. So we use a lot of it. So I think that's really important. Be proactive and ask your tutors if they're not doing it to do it.
Thanks, Rob. Some good advice for students and potentially tutors as well, I think. I'm going to go to Herpreet for the next question. What advice would you give to young professionals to have more confidence in their work in practice or in studio?
More confidence. Just be passionate about what you're doing. Show your passion. Show where this love of architecture, of the built environment came from. And that in itself will instill confidence in yourself, because when you talk about things that you're passionate about, that you relate to, that's good. And I know it can be really intimidating when you're trying to talk to your seniors or people who've been working in practice for a very long time. But remember, they were once in the same position that you are. You know, we're not all perfect, but the whole point is that the profession that we're in is it's a collaborative profession. We all learn and feed from one another's passion for design and architecture. So just feed off that. And, you know, there's nothing wrong in changing your mind or saying something, but have a voice. If you don't have a voice, then no one's going to listen. And that voice doesn't have to be physical. It could be through your drawing, it could be through your art or model making or things that you do within the community. So have confidence. We all have different aspects of things that we're good at. So bring it to the forefront. If we were all the same, we'd be building very boring buildings. So let's show your passion, whatever that might be. Bring it to the forefront.
Thanks so much, Herpreet. I'm going to give Thomas, I think, the next question would be good for. So how do you find a good balance between making your CV, cover letter and portfolio stand out in this current climate?
Yeah, so I think it's quite difficult to make it perfect. But essentially, I think if I was to give some advice, I think definitely not overdo the cover letter. Try and keep it as simple as possible. Hit the points that you need to hit, and kind of make sure that your skills are kind of standing out in the cover letter. Even by having the cover letter as something quite graphic, to even express your personality and your skills through that. So you don't necessarily have to talk too much about your graphic understanding. You're actually showing that through the kind of CV and the portfolio and the cover letter. Something that I'd probably point out to be really important is making sure that the CV, the cover letter, and the portfolio all graphically link, so that they're showing that is your kind of brand, that is you as a personality, that is your skills. I mean, I think it might be quite interesting if you kind of continue the graphic style of your kind of projects to make sure that it's all kind of linking in. And then with your profiles on LinkedIn, on Instagram, if everything's kind of branding as one, that's kind of showing you as a person and your kind of application package and what kind of direction you want to go into as a creative and a practitioner.
Yeah, great. Thanks very much, Thomas. There's a question here, Rosie. How do you get over Zoom fatigue? I don't think that's directly aimed at you, but as in, like, how do you personally? But I mean, as someone who's been studying and also working, you'll be in the routine of it now, having lots of Zoom meetings. How do you get over that and make sure you're having that routine?
Yeah, so I think that's quite difficult, and I think it's something that everyone's trying to work on. I mean, I try and take breaks and kind of stand up and stretch a bit and go and get another glass of water. And but I guess it's quite difficult to just be switched on all the time. And I think in some ways that's okay to struggle with it a little bit. But I think just kind of trying to move a bit every so often to kind of keep the blood flowing and the enthusiasm going, and paying attention and writing notes sometimes, even if you don't necessarily need to write notes, just so that you're kind of making sure you're engaged with the meeting can help a bit as well. So yeah.
Great, thanks, Rosie. I've got a question here. A lot of companies look for candidates eligible to work in the UK or with UK experience. Visa does block opportunities for overseas students who are equally passionate about continuing Part 3. What advice can you give to this group, especially during this time of pandemic? I don't know who to give that to. Rob, do you have any advice?
Thanks, Abigail, for that. I must have no. I mean, I think you. I mean, in some sense, you've answered the question in itself, right? In the sense that you have to remain positive, you have to remain confident, you have to be proactive, and certain companies will be more open to that than others. I mean, that's a reality of it, and I think in my experience, larger companies tend to be better set up to be able to take foreigners or visas on, because they're more used to it. They have a process. They have a separate HR team that can handle this a bit better. So I would target larger practices in this sense that are more set up for that. I think is important. But remain confident in what you're doing. I think is most important. And if I can just really quickly make a comment on how do you remain confident, I think is really important. That remind yourself that you know your work better than anybody else, right? They're seeing it for the first time, right? You spent you spend your blood and tears and all those other emotions on that work. You know it better than anybody. So just remain confident in yourself and know your process and as much as you know the product. And I think that's really, really important. And the students who've done really well in the interviews have been able to really talk about those strategic steps, the site analysis, the different massing models, that kind of stuff. Remember those important steps that you build up to come to that kind of solution. And I think that's a really, really important thing. Sorry, I think that's all for me, Abigail, on this one.
Thanks very much, Rob. Herpreet, I'm going to go to you for the next question, because I think it ties in quite nicely with what you talked about in your own experience. So with the current job climate, what other places are there to look for experience other than as a Part 1 architectural assistant? So what other things could people be doing?
I think at the moment, definitely the construction industries, contractors, it's a pretty good start in talking to them, because they obviously want to attract the best candidates. But it'll give you a wealth of experience working with contractors, because it's not just about learning how to build, it's how you communicate, how different contracts work, how different clients, actually seeing projects on site being completed. The other one is also going and speaking to your local authority and working within your local authority as well, because there are opportunities there to actually get involved. But by starting being involved in your, some active groups, some active architectural groups, woodland trust, sustainability groups, I think that's also because the sustainability, the green agenda is so high up there, And if you can add value, especially to your local community or the local authority, by coming up with ideas, I think that's pretty good. And also looking around where you live, sites that are available. What would you do to that site? Come up with some proposals. Go and speak to some developers. I saw this site; it was up for sale. I've done a quick sketch, some ideas. Let's talk. You've got to be pushy. You've got to put it front. There's what's the worst they can say? No, but you've got to try, and from trying you'll learn. Over to you, Abby.
Thanks, Herpreet. I've got a really interesting question here, which I think maybe Rosie and Thomas might be able to answer as recent professionals moving in from university. Someone looking for professional support as a part two to connect with other people working, and I don't know if you two have found any, you kind of touched on it before, kind of communities, or how have you found any events that have been useful to meet people, or I don't know if you've thought about any of that as you've moved into your new jobs.
Okay, so we're quite fortunate that our practice has quite a few part ones that have started at the same time, so we've been able to get to know each other a bit that way. I also got involved. I went to the ACAN open meeting that happened earlier in the month, where there were loads of different architects and people in the architecture community, and I'm looking to get more involved in that, and I think they've got another open meeting in November if anyone's interested in doing something like that. But maybe that's a way to network as well. But I mean, I'd love to know the answer to that too. So I don't know if anyone else has got any other ideas too.
Yeah, so I guess I'm also trying to still hunt for these opportunities to connect with people. But like I said, I think the Architecture Social is a good place for that. There's also people like the Mad Collective on Instagram who are putting together symposiums where they're obviously sharing experiences and giving advice and are going on down on different topics. And there's obviously opportunities to ask questions in those kind of areas. And there are a lot of Instagram pages that are doing these kind of symposiums at the moment. Obviously, everything being virtual, it's quite difficult to meet up with people and hold events and meet other students and connect. So I guess we're all trying to look for the answer at the moment in kind of creating this community. And also, I think, like Rosie said, if you're going into practice, a lot of the time you will have opportunities to kind of have meetings with peers and kind of sit down and talk about your experiences and kind of interact in that way as well. So yeah.
Thank you, Thomas. I've got a question here which I actually think might be interesting to hear from everyone, if we could kind of go around the group, and it's that, what would you say to yourself now if you were starting out architecture during a pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I was starting at architecture now, I think it's a fantastic time. I think architects tend to, or designers tend to it's an opportunity where, when the status quo has been broken or disturbed or disrupted, to actually really rethink everything that we do and how we act. And I think it's a really, really interesting time. And I think, yes, there are things that we want to change, that we want to go back to, but actually, I'll be thinking about, what are the things that we actually want to keep, right? That actually improve. How do we manage this short-term disruption, with our long-term sustainability goals? And so I would be quite excited, at this time to really sort of rethink, our behaviors, our actions, our spaces. And I think, more than anything, as I said earlier, I think it's an opportunity to rethink our spatial relationships, our spatial scales. I think it's collapsed and it's expanded aspects of that in very different ways. And I think more importantly, my last point will be that I think it's actually put a real sort of emphasis back on the local ecology and how we understand our local environment. And I think that's a really, really interesting thing. So back to you, Abby. I won't take up any more time.
if I can step in there as well, thank you. Technical glitch there. No, I absolutely agree. I think going back 20 odd plus years, I think I'd definitely rethink. I think that because there's always a pressure of the end goal, must qualify, must qualify, must qualify, must start practicing, must start practicing. And I think this is the opportunity now to step back and really evaluate what your contribution to the future is, to your future community, to the regeneration of cities. And as Rob said, is, you know, look at what you want to keep and how you want to contribute to that, and take the positives. It takes your time to get to know yourselves as individuals. We all have a tendency in trying to rush to get somewhere, to be that end goal. But this is your time as students and working in practice to actually evolve with who you are. And the only way you can do that is go out and try new things, you know, be brave. And yes, there will be rejections, but from that you will also learn as well. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think it's quite strange because when I went into lockdown, I was actually quite excited by the prospect of kind of working from home in this kind of changed environment and this like new challenge. So I guess it's an opportunity for students to express their drawings and personality through a different medium and kind of test the waters with something else rather than kind of being this like in this melodic kind of sequence of being in studio and presenting and pinning up and printing out. There's an opportunity to kind of change that and have something different. So I think it's quite an exciting challenge going into kind of like this different environment. Obviously, I understand that a lot of students don't have a personal space where they can work quite comfortably and they don't have the environment, which is obviously very difficult. But I also think it's an opportunity to kind of broaden your horizons as a creative, to kind of broaden your skill sets. And one thing that I'd probably tell myself is definitely try and be disciplined. I know it's very difficult, obviously, being at home, having the temptation of just, I don't know, going out or cooking in your kitchen or whatever, or going sitting down and watching a film. I think it's important to be disciplined and stick to some kind of routine to make sure you're getting on with the work, you're waking up at a certain time every day, you're going to sleep, you're getting enough sleep and all those kind of things, which is really important to make sure you're getting the work done, and also kind of enjoying yourself and enjoying your life and kind of sticking to your hobbies and whatnot. So yeah.
I think I agree with what everyone else is saying. I think you need to keep enthusiastic. I think sometimes it's quite difficult with the world changing and going, who knows what will happen next week. But I think there's also so many exciting opportunities, whether that's with COVID and working from home, but also there's all these things about diversity within architecture and all these things about the climate emergency. And there are so many opportunities and routes that architecture and buildings can go down in the next few years. And I think it is actually a really exciting time. So sometimes it's difficult to remember that, but I think you need to keep it in your mind, so to keep you motivated. And also I think a routine definitely really helps to kind of keep going, especially while you're at uni and things are a bit weird. I think, yeah, definitely keep a routine. Yeah.
Thanks everyone. Thank you all for sharing those thoughts. That was really interesting. I think we're just going to have a final few questions before we wrap up. So I've got a question here which I think will be good for Rob. You touched earlier on the idea of meeting mentors and the significance of that. So someone's got a question that is, what's the best way to approach a potential mentor and how to find them?
Yeah, thanks, Abigail. It's a really good question. But I mean, the first thing is, if your practice should, as part of the, actually, to be honest, as an interview process, you should be, one of the questions that I advocate for our students to ask is, will I have a mentor? Who will that mentor be? What is the role of that mentor? So even before you start the job, you should be proactively asking about this to make sure that you've established that. And once you've started, it actually is part of, I think it's officially, as part of the RIBA chartered role, is that you should be assigned a mentor, right? So if you haven't been assigned a mentor, ask and say you want a mentor, and make sure that that mentor is available. Make sure that mentor you set up, you say, can we please have a weekly or bi-weekly meeting that we have in the diary that's set up, that we can have a routine set time period, as well as, hopefully feeling comfortable to be able to talk to them in impromptu situations. And I think also don't be afraid if that mentor isn't, after a while, if you're having difficulty accessing the mentor, or the mentor isn't providing what you need, don't be afraid to ask, questions about that, and ask and see if you can, have a different mentor. And most of the time, it's not because the mentor doesn't care. A lot of times it's because they're busier than what they expected, for example. And I think, you might find yourself with a supplementary mentor if your mentor is actually working outside of your project. So making sure that you find a supplemental mentor who's on the project with you that you're working on is another good way to do that. I think that's my advice. Thanks, Abby.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for your advice there. I've got an interesting question here, and I'm just I think I'll put it to Herpreet as our practice representative, but I feel like it might be an interesting one for someone else to have a go at as well. So with issues from oppression over the years towards BAME community, do you feel any responsibility to educate yourselves and your practices to reduce these socio-political issues within architecture and bring a new element and shine on many more talented architects and designers, i.e. the RIBA Gold Medal winner David J. and the future of Black and Brown architects?
Thank you, Abby, and that's a really, really relevant question in the current climate, and I think it's always been there. The BAME community within architecture hasn't been represented. As I said, 20 plus years doing this, I've seen a huge difference, a huge diversity, a more inclusive architecture, not just in BAME, with disability, with gender. It's a lot more level compared to a lot of other industries out there. I know it may not feel like that, and I agree. I think for the BAME community, we really need role models, and that's where we are. That's how I see myself, working up from being one of the first people in my family to ever go to university, let alone do architecture, which was always seen as a male-dominated industry, and coming from a very traditional Asian family. So it's about changing those perceptions and actually, demonstrating that it doesn't matter what background you are as good as architect, because those differences, that versatile background, brings a different quality into what we're doing and what we're doing. As I said earlier on, if we're all the same, we're going to build really boring buildings. So we need that versatility, and I think that is changing, and it's great to see that more and more. But we need to get more and more of those BAME role models in senior positions, so people have, somebody to aspire to. So that is happening. So I hope I've asked your question. It is a real, it's a question that's a lot of people feel very strongly about, but things are changing and things will continue to change. But the more we talk about it, the more we're open about it, the better we're going to create more of an inclusive architectural industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Herpreet. I think it was a really great question, and I think probably a great question to end on there, a really poignant one. And I think one that gives us a lot to think about. So we're coming to the end of our meetup tonight, so I'm going to draw the event to a close now. Thank you to our speaker panel, Rosie, Thomas, Rob and Herpreet, for your insights and your encouragement tonight. Thank you to all of you who have attended as well this evening. We hope that it's been useful, and I hope that it's provided you with some information to turn a challenge into an opportunity. You'll receive a post-event feedback form, so just take a couple of minutes to complete it so we can continually develop the Future Architects programme, providing more events like this and connecting you with more people. It's great that we can do this virtually now. And remember that our RIBA student membership is free, so do sign up to be part of the network and find out about more events like this. So yeah, thank you again to our panel members. Thank you again to everyone for attending. Stay safe, seek opportunities, and above all, stay on track to achieve your goals. Good night.